Good evening, Californios. It's Friday night, October 15th, 2021, and we are Red Star Report. Tonight is PodCast21, back from our podcast number 20 hiatus. For those that do not know, that's how Red Star Report works for the moment. We create 10 episodes over 10 weeks, then we need to take 2 weeks off to make improvements, add content, and plan for the next 10 episodes. Due diligence behind the scenes so Red Star Report can improve and continue to grow. So let's go to Voices for the California Nation. For tonight on Voices for the California Nation, I have a theme that as a Long Beach resident is near and dear to my heart to start things off. But let me give you a little background first. I remember as a 9-year-old kid in early 1970 sitting in the backseat of my dad's car as we went for a Sunday drive up the California coast. These drives and a fast food dinner were my ultra-conservative dad's cost-effective, and you can read that as cheap, way of, quote, getting my mom out of the house, end quote, every once in a while. Which was something he often actually had trouble understanding why she kind of needed that break from being stuck in the routine of housework and raising 3 young kids, and I was the oldest. So there we were, rolling up Highway 101 north of Ventura, coming into Santa Barbara. My father grudgingly staring laser beam straight ahead at the road rushing under the family Pontiac's wheels, while my mother, who was just glad to be anywhere, turning this way and that way, pointing out trees and cows and any landmark of possible interest to us kids sitting bored in the back seat. Which she could do because, of course, at that time, seatbelt laws weren't a thing then. Anyway, being Californian, as we're coming into Santa Barbara on a Sunday on Pacific Coast Highway, we hit traffic. Now, my dad is mad enough about this because he wasn't expecting traffic, go figure, but what really sets off his ultra-conservative indignation is the totally un-American commie conspiracy activity that's the reason for the traffic. It's a protest. Lots of people parked along the road, waving lots of ecology flags, protesting about the 1969 Santa Barbara oil spill environmental disaster. And for me in the back seat, it was a 9-year-old's paradigm shift. The first time I ever saw groovy people involved in political dissent carrying what I thought at that time was the coolest flag ever. For my mom in the front seat, it wasn't so good. She had to have her Sunday drive ruined by my dad's rant about those damn hippies and for the entire 100-mile drive back home. So fast forward 51 years, and here we go again. On October 2nd, an offshore oil rig named Ellie, 4.5 miles off the California coast at Huntington Beach, owned by, of course, a Texas-based oil company, experiences a pipeline failure pouring 144,000 gallons of filthy crude onto California's coast. The failure, they believe, was caused when the anchor of one of the 87 container vessels waiting for unloading at the port of Long Beach, Los Angeles, struck a pipeline owned by Houston-based Amplify Energy, which shuttles crude from its 3 offshore platforms to a facility on the shore. By the following day, the spill had closed Huntington Beach, Laguna Beach, Crystal Cove, and had washed into the environmentally protected Talbot marshlands and, of course, up on the Santa Fe River Trail, affecting wildlife with dead birds and fish already washing up on the beaches. The spill led California Governor Gavin Newsom to declare a state of emergency in Orange County. Like Orange County's not already a state of emergency. And led California Senator Alex Padilla to make a public statement. It's unacceptable that Californians are once again facing the devastating effects of an offshore oil spill, and the trade-off between oil production and environmental harm is simply not one we as Californians should be making any longer. Shocked. Although Southern California may be impacted environmentally for years, state and local officials announced the oil leak was repaired on Monday, October 11th. So what does this mean for the California independence movement? Well, California already leads the U.S. in policies curbing fossil fuels and has set moratoriums on future offshore drilling expansion, but it still ranks as the nation's 7th biggest crude oil producer, according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration. Still, statewide progress is being made, and California is a global leader in renewable energy. Unfortunately, California, as just a state, is limited to a 3-mile coastal jurisdiction, where the U.S. claims to be able to sell licensing for offshore oil drilling out to a full 200-mile international boundary limit. Now, the state of California has done a heroic job in the courts of blocking these offshore permits. But in the end, as long as California is just a state, the USA has sovereignty over our coasts. That's how we inevitably get Texas oil rigs 4.5 miles off the California coast, and where they drill, they spill. So even if we take the greater issue of fossil fuels versus climate change out of the argument, and God knows why we would ever do that in the first place, simply put, people that don't even live in California from out-of-state companies like Amplify Energy from Texas can and will be allowed by the U.S. to drill for profit off our coasts, while Californians that do live here will get stuck with the mess. California independence means the American oil industry has no right to California's coast, and saving our environment for future Californians. This is Voices for the California Nation. Shankars Off has tonight off. He's off to Northern California on assignment, taping interviews and talking to people. Shankar will be back next week, but just in case you miss him, we have a little something for you. Let's have some fun.
Hello, Californios. Shankars Off here, live from Union Station, and I'm here with John. He's a tour guide with the Los Angeles Conservancy project, and he's been took us around here and showed us the unknown wonders of Union Station. But Union Station, we all know it as a busy port for a lot of people. John, how many people do you think go through Union Station every day, every month? Or how many people do you think go through here?
Well, I would say on a really busy day, probably 90,000. 90,000
people per day, folks, coming through Union Station. That is, in my math, I'm going to guess 360 million, I guess, a year. I'm not sure about that, but that's quite a lot of people going through here.
That was
pre-COVID? Pre-COVID. So I understand they had the Academy Awards here. Where exactly would they have it here? I saw some interesting areas, but...
Well, I believe they had it over in the ticket office, the big ticket office.
ticket office would be right behind us. This here, this building here.
Yeah. And they built it up with scaffold, so maybe 2 or 3 levels.
Oh, it's like a 3-story set scaffold. That's
pretty neat how they did it.
Did you manage to go to the academy? Were you there too?
No,
or you saw them build it? Oh, that would have been sweet. My final question for you really is the Los Angeles Conservancy project. You guys did a great job of keeping the austerity of this place and not letting it go too crazy here. What else? What other locations in LA do you guys?
Well, they do different tours. Like they do Art Deco, so there will be buildings with Art Deco.
I see.
And they do Broadway, which are all the old theaters, many of those, and Los Angeles is one of those that you can go in. It's beautiful.
Very good. Do you have a website or something that the folks out there can check out to?
Yeah, it would be LA Conservancy.
LAConservancy.com, folks. They do the tours around LA and they keep everything Art Deco neutral, and that's what we've seen here at Union Station. Thank you once again, Hal. Back to you, bud.
This is Talking Points. So, here's a question I've heard before that kind of goes, if California leaves the U.S., what would California do without America's financial support? I admit, this is not the smartest question I've ever heard. It assumes that somehow without the U.S. government sending California money, that our nation state would go broke. It ignores that the whole California is a donor state thing. They don't get that the U.S. is actually sending us back less than half of the 470 billion tax dollars that America basically co-ops from California in the first place every year. And of course, nobody seems to comprehend that 90 billion of California's federal tax contribution that could have paid for half of California's annual operating budget goes directly down the military budget rabbit hole. It's like these people think California is a charity case or something. Anyway, let me put your mind to rest with a little Cal-splaining. I just made that up. On Wednesday, October 13th, the Biden White House announced on Twitter that the Port of Los Angeles and possibly Long Beach, who combined make up the busiest consumer port in the Americas, will begin 24/7 operation to help alleviate the growing U.S. supply chain crisis. You see, basically, 2021 has been a difficult year for America's consumer economy and supply chains. A continuing global economic labor shortage, skyrocketing commodity costs, unprecedented raw material shortages, and supply chain delays continue to plague companies and consumers that need goods. And as of right now, over 87 giant container ships carrying what would be 500,000 tons of consumer goods and raw materials are sitting off the California coast at the Port of Los Angeles and Long Beach, just waiting to be unloaded. Unprecedented consumer demand has caused an import surge, and with imports, shipping, and an all-time high, many U.S. warehouses and shipping yards are at maximum capacity and unable to manage the heavy influx of cargo. And this inability to move freight at normal speeds has screwed up the entire system, and delayed at warehouses and shipping yards are now choking America's entire supply chain. This, as e-commerce has boomed over the past few years, as consumers have become comfortable with online shopping, and those trends show no sign of changing in the future. California ports in Los Angeles and Long Beach alone account for not only 1/3 of all U.S. imports, But these conjoined ports operate as the primary and almost sole source of consumer goods imported from China, Japan, Korea, Indonesia, the rest of Asia, and largely the entire Pacific Rim. That means that each of these container ships coming into California carries millions of dollars worth of popular imports, including furniture, auto parts, electronics, plastics, according to data from the Port of Los Angeles. So what does this have to do with the question? If California leaves the U.S., what would California do without America's financial support? Talking point. If an American consumer owns something, either the entire something, or the parts needed for that something, or the raw materials needed to create that something probably came through California. With the fifth largest economy in the world and control of the busiest consumer goods ports in the Western Hemisphere, California doesn't need U.S. financial support. In fact, if you look for and can find the numbers, you'd be in for a shock. You see, California's annual operating budget is around $210 billion total. That's this year. And we're already running at a surplus if nothing changes. U.S. imports from China alone coming through California ports average about $640 billion a year. If we do a little math, and an independent California simply charged Americans a measly 5% tariff, it would generate almost $34 billion in free money revenue for California, or 16% of California's total annual budget, just on Chinese consumer goods alone, as an example. That says nothing about imports from Japan, Korea, India, Indonesia, etc., etc. If this supply chain crisis has shown us anything, California is exactly the major choke point for the American consumer economy that we've always suspected it to be. And there's opportunity there. So, if California leaves the U.S., what would California do without America's financial support? Well, the first tenet of U.S.-style capitalism is supply and demand. And this supply chain crisis has shown that California can control both. This is Talking Points. Well, that's it for this week. As always, check out our website, www.redstarreport.com. Transcripts of Talking Points will be posted there. Also, be sure to subscribe to our Red Star Report YouTube channel. I mean, come on, guys. Get with it. Subscribe. It doesn't even cost you anything. While you're there, go find our Red Star Report Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram, etc., etc. Because, honestly, if you want a real California Independence Movement media group, it's all about the algorithms. Our thanks to you and all our Red Star Rebels for watching. Have a great weekend. We are Red Star Report.